Okay, so before I even get started, you're probably gonna see that my webcam looks a lot different than normal, and my lighting is it's a little bit weird. And it's because when I have my overhead light on, for some reason there's a weird strobing effect, and there was pretty much nothing I could do to fix it. So hopefully you guys are fine with this lighting. I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world, other than the fact that it makes me look like a pale ghost. But yeah, unfortunately, that's just something we're gonna have to work with for this video. As otherwise, we're gonna have this weird like strobing effect going on with the video, and I feel like that would be very distracting for most people, so I'm opting for the other lighting. But with episode 9, with one episode left before the end of the season, I'll admit I was expecting for a little bit of a faster paced episode than what we got, and I still liked it, but I admit the pacing I would have liked it to be, again, a little bit of a faster paced episode. The episode starts off with Boyd and Ellis looking for Fatima, who has gone missing in the previous episode, but then Boyd has a flare up with his Parkinson's, so then they have to go back to the town. And then that's when Boyd finally opens up to Ellis that he has Parkinson's, and he's just like, yeah, this is something that's not going to go away, and it's actually going to get worse over time. And then later on in the episode, Boyd has a conversation with Kenny about how his Parkinson's is getting worse, and how he wants Kenny to replace him when he's gone or when his disease causes him to not really be able to lead effectively. I'm just thinking that sometime later on in the show, they are going to have to replace him with Kenny, at least in the leadership role. Like, I'm not saying he's going to, like, die or something, but I'm just thinking that, like, it's going to cause him to, like, at least later on in the show to basically be crippled and not really be able to effectively lead anymore. And I don't know, I think it's just something that's been strongly hinted at by the show, is that it's something that's going to get worse, and it's going to happen sometime during the series. And then another thing that happens in this episode is that those weird voices that Sarah had been hearing in her head finally come back, and this time they're just taunting her about Fatima, and they're just like, yeah, there's nothing you can do about her, so suck on that. And I'd wondered why the voices had just left Sarah alone for so long, but I think it's just because they realized that they couldn't really manipulate Sarah anymore, so they just moved on to Elgin. And then Sarah goes and tells Boyd and Ellis what she heard, and that causes them to just be like, alright, we gotta involve the town now, we gotta have a search party. And then I do think the cop character is right in arguing that Sarah should probably be getting looked into a lot more, as they are kind of just leaving her alone. And while Donna, Ellis, and Boyd know that Sarah didn't murder Tilly, no one else knows that. So it is pretty reasonable to suspect that Sarah was actually the one that murdered Tilly. And Boyd probably should have had someone watching over Sarah during this time, as I could just easily see the townspeople getting angry and wanting to kill Sarah. So at least that would ease some of that like anger and frustration. And honestly, I'm just surprised no one has like directly confronted Sarah about this and tried to kill her or put her in the box or anything. I think that would have added some much needed action and tension to this episode. And obviously there's the whole Fatima thing, but most of the tension is like waiting for her to like give birth to whatever the thing is, so I do think this episode could have used some like action or tension from what I just mentioned about Sarah. And again, I still find that cop character Acosta to be really annoying, and honestly Donna's really smart to not really let her in on the situation, as she's just kind of like another Randall situation waiting to happen. And then the scenes with Elgin and Fatima, I mostly liked it. I think I would have liked to see a little bit more progression, but I guess at the same time, really the only progression would have been her giving birth to the monster, which they obviously wanted to save that for the last episode, so I'm okay with that. And she still tried to escape, and Elgin caught her, so at least there was some action there, and a little bit, like, it wasn't just her sitting there and doing nothing the whole episode. So overall, I still like the scenes with them. I don't agree with Elgin's logic as to why he kidnapped Fatima, as he kind of just said, oh, the kimono lady said that coming down here will save your baby. And it's like, first off, you're just letting this random creature tell you that, and you're believing it. And then the situation itself is, oh, if you lock her in a basement, that's the only way the baby will be safe. It's just like, do you really believe that? Like, how stupid do you have to be? And I just kind of wish that in the previous episodes it had shown the kimono lady, like, manipulating Elgin more about, like, what he needs to do with Fatima, instead of just, I can save you, just over and over again. Or just scenes of her, like, just appearing and disappearing. As I feel like at least that could have helped me be like, alright, I sort of at least can empathize or understand where Elgin's at. But because we didn't get like any of those scenes, I'm just kind of like, dude, what are you doing? And then I think Elgin was just wild for picking Ellis to partner up with. It's like, dude, you kidnapped his girlfriend and you're partnering up with them to search for Fatima. And I get that like Elgin was just trying to comfort Ellis, but it's like, dude, again, you literally kidnapped his girlfriend. Or I guess they're technically married. I kind of forgot about that shitty marriage episode. And I was hoping that like Elgin would eventually feel guilty enough that he would just admit to Ellis that he kidnapped Fatima and was just trying to apparently save her baby. And while that's something they're probably gonna say for next episode, I would have preferred that to happen at the end of this episode instead. Like after Elgin like feeling really bad for Ellis and hearing his stories, he's just like, "Oh, I'm really sorry, but I kidnapped your girlfriend and I put her in the cellar." And then he's just like, "What the fuck?" And he tries to find her, and then it just cuts away from their scene. And then we see a scene of Victor being upset from remembering his past, and he blames himself for his mother dying, as well as the rest of the town. And this causes Victor to throw a bunch of stuff off the second floor of Colony House in a rage.
What the fuck?
And then he rushes to go cut down the special faraway tree, as in his mind, he doesn't want to see anyone else killed because of it. And then as Victor is right about to cut down the tree, the boy in white just suddenly appears and he's like, "Don't cut down that tree, stop!" And then he doesn't provide any sort of information about why. And then when Victor prods him for any more information, he's just like, "Nah, dude," and he just dips. And that just kind of pissed me off, and because it's like, you have the ability to explain like whatever you can to him right there, and he's just like, "Nah, I don't really feel like it," and then walks away, and it's just, I don't know. I just thought it was just kind of stupid to me, and it just kind of felt like bad writing there. And he explains that Christopher wouldn't listen to him before, but Victor's right there, ready to listen to him. So it's just like, what are you doing, dude? And then the scene with Jade hallucinating Christopher and Jasper was honestly hilarious. It was just like, okay, if you guys are suddenly appearing on the roof, you're not gonna fucking scare me now. And then that's when Jasper randomly does a scream, and it's just, that was hilarious.
You think at this point I haven't seen enough of you people? Try something new, cause this, it's not doing it for me anymore.
And then Henry comes in asking Jade for advice on Victor. And I would say that Jade gives him pretty sound advice for the most part. But I don't really agree that Jade's saying that Henry's just trying to change Victor when I think Henry's been pretty open-minded and just trying to connect with this kid. And I think it would have made more sense if Henry had gone in and been a little bit more judgmental of how weird Victor was. But it doesn't really seem to me that Henry was like doing that at all. And I guess I think my issue with this episode, or why I think the pacing was a little bit off, was that there really was a lot of like these like character moments, like these character developing moments. And I just think that for one episode away from the finale, it's a little bit much, and some of this probably could have happened earlier. And then it kind of pissed me off at first as to why Julie wouldn't explain what happened to her. But then I kind of understood because it's like Jim's right there, and he hasn't exactly been the most understanding of people so far. And then she ended up opening up to Tabitha about it later on when Jim was gone, so after that I was like, alright, I get it. And I was mildly disappointed that they didn't explore what happened with Julie last episode a little bit more. But there was a lot going on in this episode, so I don't really fault them for that. And I like how the last episode gave Jim the realization that he's been an asshole for quite a while now. And I like the subversion of expectations with the scene where he goes up to Randall to ask about what happened to Julie, as I was fully expecting him to just go confront Randall and just basically try to get in an argument with him. But instead he's just like, "Hey man, I want to know what happened with her because I'm just kind of concerned about her and she's not opening up to me." And then I like the scene where Jim helps Ethan not feel at fault for what happened to Julie, and he explains that he himself had felt at fault for what happened to Ethan in the first season with the RV, as he was driving in that incident. And even with Tabitha, he's been more supportive. And I'm just hoping that this is the version of Jim that we see for the rest of the show. And then Tabitha seems to be having a weird awakening, as she's starting to gain the skills of Theodora from The Haunting of Hill House. And while the episode shows that there's something weird going on with Tabitha, it doesn't really fully explain her weird premonitions until the end of the episode. As when Tabitha hugs Victor to comfort him about his mother, that's when we finally see one of her visions. And in this vision, or even possibly memory, Victor's mom makes it to the bottle tree, but that's when she encounters the monster Smiley, who runs at her and kills her. And we've never actually seen the monsters run until this moment, and I'm guessing it's because they knew that Victor's mom at this point had the ability to save the town somehow. And I actually have a theory that the monsters aren't affected by the talismans. I think they just see it as part of their hunting game, and they just are like, okay, well, honestly, it's already really easy to just go out and kill everyone, so this will make it a little bit harder on us and make it more fun. But I think after whatever Victor told his mother, the monsters realized that Victor's mother had the ability to save everyone and get them out of the town permanently, and the monsters were just like, yeah, we can't let that happen, and that's when they were like, alright, we just gotta kill everyone now. So overall, I think this was a pretty good episode. I think the pacing was a little bit slow, and the boy in white again kind of pissed me off. But I really like the progression with Jim's character. I'm really interested in seeing what's going on with Tabitha. So overall, I think I would give this episode an 8 out of 10. I'm excited to see how they're going to end the season, and I'm just hoping they don't end it with a cliffhanger in terms of like Fatima. Like I hope we know fully what happens with her and her baby. Other than that, I'd probably be fine with the cliffhanger, but just please end the Fatima shit. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe. And let me know what you felt about this episode down below. If you have any like theories as to what you think is going on, be sure to let me know in the comments, as I'm curious to see what you guys think. Also, if you're subscribed to me, let me know what kinds of videos you'd like to see me make in the future, as this season's already almost over, and I'll probably have a couple videos come out about this show like afterwards, but there's not really going to be a ton. So be sure to let me know what kinds of like movies or TV shows or even video games you'd be interested in me making these kinds of videos about, as obviously the From content is going to be a little bit dry until next season. But other than that, I'll see you guys next time. Bye for now.